You're listening to Season 2 of the Humans of AI Stories Not Stats podcast, where Devi Parekh and Dhruv Batra talk to AI researchers to try and understand who they are as people, what their life is like, what they think about, what they're insecure about, what they get excited about. Questions that reveal the stories of their day-to-day lives. In this episode, Dhruv talks to Judy Hoffman, who is an assistant professor in the School of Interactive Computing at Georgia Tech. Judy talks about her tendency to plan and optimize every task, how she finds it rewarding to uplift those around her, the importance of family and friends in her life, and a lot more. For more information on the podcast and episodes, check out the Humans of AI website linked in the description. And without any further ado, let's get right to the conversation.
Okay. All right. So we can get started. So Judy, thank you. Welcome to Humans of AI, and thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
As you know, this is being recorded. I have a sequence of questions for you. Some are light and may not require a lot of thought. Others may require a bit more consideration, in which case feel free to take your time, pause. If you want to skip any question, we can do that. When in doubt, if you can err on the side of being open, vulnerable, transparent, I think we'd appreciate that. Sound good?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, so what were you doing right before this call?
I was working on some slides for a talk tomorrow.
Academic life.
Yes.
What's your daily routine like?
It varies. This semester, I'm teaching a large undergrad class. So on Tuesday, Thursdays, part of my day has to do with that. Some of the other days, it's research meetings. We had a faculty candidate today, so meeting for that. Just kind of depends on the day. I try to leave at least part of one day a week for being able to do more focused work without distractions, but it's very variable.
And what's the most favorite part of your day?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day. I like having brainstorming research meetings with students if that's part of the day. Otherwise, I love, especially during this era of everything being online, I love it when I can stop having meetings and can maybe get outside for a bit.
Yeah. And what's the least favorite part of your day? Sounds like it's the Zoom calls.
Yeah, or just the monotony of them. There's just so many, and they're back to back, and at least when you're interacting with somebody in person, there's I don't know, there's a little bit less pressure. Ironically, you're not staring at someone's face intently. You kind of can look around. You do other things a bit. Maybe you walk and grab a coffee sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that creates a lot more fun social environment versus Zoom calls are very business focused, and it's really tiring to do them back to back the whole day.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do you set an alarm in the morning?
I do. I have to. I am not a morning person. So if it's really important I get up, I may have to set multiple alarms.
And so it sounds like you do snooze the alarms because you're setting backups.
I definitely snooze the alarm. There's no hope of not snoozing the alarm. I have to allot an extra 15 to 30 minutes just knowing myself that I will snooze it.
Interesting. How many backup alarms do you have?
I guess it depends how tired I am or how early I have to get up. But usually it would just be 2 alarms, just, set 5 minutes apart on my phone so that I make sure that if I snooze it, I hear another one again.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you consider yourself a planner or more of a person who operates on gut feel and goes with the flow?
A little bit of both. I'm definitely a planner in the sense that I love organization. I love to think things through, but I'm totally fine throwing it out the window and doing something else in the moment if that seems better.
Hmm.
And I think that I'm probably not actually just doing it on the fly. I suspect I've already thought it through, just maybe not quite as consciously.
Reminds me of the quote that plans are useless, but planning is essential.
Yes, that's very much my philosophy. Though you shouldn't like at least in this profession, it's really hard to be too hard on the plan because things change so much. So
Mm.
yeah.
Do you struggle with procrastination?
For certain tasks, there are some things that I don't know, prefer to do, and I'll do them right away. There's no big deal. And then there are other tasks that just day by day get moved. Oh, I can do that tomorrow. It's fine.
Just out of curiosity, what's the longest you've punted on a task?
Well, so far I'm pretty good at getting things in by the deadline. So my procrastination extends up until basically having to do it last minute by the deadline. So, whenever that deadline happens to be, but I'll be very ambitious. I'll do my planning and I'll see that I have something that's going to be due in a few months, and I'll try to start putting it on my calendar or scheduling it in. But yeah, I'll just postpone it.
Mm. And do you struggle with time management?
Not really. I'm pretty good at estimating how long things will take me. What I struggle with is deciding to not do something and uh, you know, do something in its place, and then basically having to rush some task. But that's more about the procrastination.
Yep. Yep. Makes sense. And are you competitive, Judy?
I am competitive. Probably most competitive with myself. I set really high standards and have a hard time recognizing when something went well. I'll definitely focus in on the parts that could have been better.
Yeah, yeah. That resonates. I know what you mean. Where the things that went well, you sort of brush aside and you don't focus on, but it's all the things that didn't go well that your mind tends to get drawn to, or
Right,
one's.
exactly. And actually, as a grad student, that was a pretty hard personality trait to have because you don't get a lot of positive, like objectively positive feedback throughout the process. So that's
Yeah.
kind of one of the things I tend to always tell people if I'm on a panel or talking to my students in my lab is just uh, force yourself to celebrate when something positive happens so you can really let it sink in.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Is there a rejection or a failure that hurt particularly bad?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. When I was early in my PhD, we had these exams, and one of the first exams I had to take, to pass on to the next level, I failed it, and it was like it was just one of the weirdest experiences because I was very prepared. I knew everything. It was an oral exam, and I just like deer in the headlights totally froze during the exam. Um, and that was kind of like a harsh lesson because up until that point in my life, I think there was no actual failure. It was like, something I was unhappy about, didn't do as well as I could have, but it wasn't kind of that harsh no.
Yeah, interesting. I think for a lot of us, when we get to grad school, that's the first time we have to grapple with failures of any kind. For a lot of us, we've just sort of been told, yeah, keep going, you're doing well.
Right.
Is there a particular success or achievement that felt particularly good?
It's so funny that this one would be harder for me to think of. Back to what I said before.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the first time, this is not even that big a thing, but and maybe if I thought about it longer, I'd think of something else. But the first thing that comes to my mind is I really enjoy giving talks. And the first time I was able to give a talk in front of a large audience and it kind of went well, it was just really exciting and validating. And I was like, oh, I really want to do more of this.
Nice. Where was this talk, out of curiosity?
I got to give a talk at the Wimmel workshop at NeurIPS in 2012. That was my first conference talk.
Nice. What is one thing that you are worse at than people around you?
This is maybe a funny answer, but paying attention. I'm very easily distracted. I don't actually know whether or not people are paying attention, but I suspect they're paying more attention than I do. I think of it as a strength and a weakness. I can think about many things simultaneously.
Yeah, and I'm thinking through your answer, and it's not clear to me if academia is known for laser focused individuals who will not explore or find many things interesting, and maybe curiosity is linked to the kinds of attention drifting phenomena.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah. And what would you say is your single biggest strength?
It's kind of related to the planning aspect. I think I'm very good at seeing a big daunting problem and kind of breaking it down into smaller pieces, and also kind of being able to see those small pieces but not forget about the big piece. So kind of, I don't know if full stack is the right way to phrase it, but yeah, being able to have that kind of spectrum of views.
Interesting. Is there a particular tool or a trick or a hack that you find has made your life more convenient or efficient or fun? Like a planning device or something?
I wouldn't say it's one particular trick. It's just that I am the type of person who really likes to optimize things. I hate if I have to do a task multiple times. I want to figure out a way to do it faster, do it better, maybe hopefully automate it. And so because of that, I will sometimes spend a lot of time building something just for my own, personal use that seems like it might be a waste of time initially, but then invariably it does actually help long term. And yeah, there's lots of different things. Like, for example, area chair for a conference, like just building tools to automatically like grab all the reviews, parse them, put them into easy readable files, and have a spreadsheet that's auto created and color coded that will tell me like, what are the scores of the papers and stuff like that.
Oh, fancy. I want that. Should we just follow your GitHub repository? Is that what we should do?
Well, it's very hacky because only I've used it, but I'm happy to share it with you.
Okay. I think you may get requests after this. That sounds useful. Is there an idea or an external influence, maybe something you read, something you came across in a podcast, something from a talk that had a particularly deep impression on you?
So when I first became a professor, I listened to some different podcasts about like management style and thinking about kind of what motivates different people. And that made an impression on me. It made a lot of sense. Everybody's unique. Everybody's motivated by different things. And but if you're kind of managing a group, helping people out, trying to mentor them, you have to not only think about kind of where they want to be, even if you have that clearly, but kind of what will motivate them day by day to get there, and what sort of successes, like micro successes, would actually be really exciting to different people. And that was really interesting to me, made a lot of sense, and I hope that's been helpful in guiding people.
Makes sense. How do you make difficult decisions? Do you have a framework or a line of thinking? Like, is it just pros and cons analysis with like a point system? Like, are you a hardcore utilitarian? How do you approach difficult decisions?
It's the same way as that planning I was talking about. I
Okay.
will definitely make lists. I'll definitely think about it. I will talk to people a lot, and then I'll just make a decision. And not even looking at lists or anything. But it's sunk in at some point.
And do you generally find that you're happy with the decisions? Do you have regret about decisions later?
I definitely have regret when it comes to some things. Funny enough, like pretty much I have more regret about mundane decisions than I do about big decisions. So for example, I'm like the world's worst person at deciding what to eat at, like, I get to a restaurant and I decide what I want to eat. I will change my mind 3 times and then somebody will come and ask me what I want and I'll pick something else. And then I will just think to myself, oh, it would have been so good if I'd picked that other thing. But weirdly, about big decisions, like, I don't know which job to take or which house to buy, which car to get, it's like there's no big deal. Like, I can just make the decision and it's fine.
Interesting. And would you rather have it the other way around? Or are you happy
Probably
with it?
not.
Yeah.
Probably not. I'm okay with it. It's really not that big a deal. It's just, in the moment, definitely my friends and family know this about me. They're like, take the menu away. Don't let her think about it anymore.
Interesting. Do you have an internal monologue? Do you talk to yourself?
Not really. I don't know, actually. I don't know if I've thought about that before. Yeah, not so much, I don't think. But I do like to, I love going on walks or hikes in nature, and I probably think to myself while I'm doing that. But I don't know, I also like to listen to audiobooks, so it's hard to say.
And are you a visual thinker? Do you have pictures, moving pictures, scenarios that play out in your head that you can see?
No, not really. I think I'm more auditory. Like, I really love talking to people. So that's why you said, do you have an internal monologue? Maybe, but more often it's like I need to find someone else to sit there and let me talk to them, which is sort of my internal monologue.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I often find that sometimes complicated ideas make sense on their way out of my mouth. Like when I'm trying to express the token and what words to use, that's when it finally sort of clicks in.
Exactly. That's exactly how I am. It's like so strange. I'm not exactly sure why it doesn't make as much sense until I'm forced to like fully articulate it to another person.
It's the compression effects of a linear expression mechanism. What do you think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something? Like, what do you have awareness of what goes on the back burner?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what's going on. If there's something I'm sort of anxious about that's upcoming, my mind will shift to that. If not, then I might start to think about travel or random little things I can optimize in my life.
So there's a background thread that's always optimizing things.
Pretty much. I mean, it's not always work related either. It could be just anything, like, how to get the shopping done faster or whatever.
That's cool. You get it for free.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you recharge or take a break?
I definitely like exercise, not necessarily super intense exercise, but I like walking, running, hiking. And I've recently gotten very into audiobooks, which I can do while I'm doing those things if I'm alone. Or even, I don't know, you can just sort of, if I'm really, really out of it at night, I can just kind of like lay down and listen to a book. It's like being read a bedtime story.
Nice. That sounds cozy.
Yeah.
And where do you find your escape? Do you get away is it on the hikes, or is it through some other mechanisms?
Yeah, I like taking vacations. I especially love tropical vacations. I'm like a huge ocean lover, and so if I get a chance, I like to go somewhere tropical. And yeah, I find that having a change of scenery really, really changes my mindset, and it's kind of the best way for me to detach from work for a bit and recharge. Which is why, hikes or something like that is a micro version of this, but going away for a week is clearly better.
Hmm. Are you happy with the number of close friends you have?
Yes and no. I'm happy overall. I'm not happy that I moved to Atlanta recently and then everything went online. So the number of close friends that I have that are within reach is not as much as I would like. But there's all these online calls, and hopefully we'll be able to travel again soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed to that. What are you insecure about?
Oh, probably the standard imposter syndrome type thing, which is just, did I do this well enough? You can always find somebody else that did something better than you, especially if you only evaluate on one particular axis at a time and allow different people to fill in all the different axes, which is my tendency. And so, yeah, it's probably also not that uncommon in academia.
Yeah, this taking population level max along different axes is a very dangerous game, because it sets up unrealistic expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think you're average, above average, or below average happy compared to the people around you?
I think above average, but I don't know. It's hard to tell what people are feeling inside, but I tend to err on the optimistic sort of side of things, and I think that serves you well in terms of feeling a bit happier. Yeah.
But you do find yourself focusing on the
Yeah, I was just about to say that actually. I was like, which is so funny because I'm very critical of myself, but when I just like think about a whole situation or the world or different things, I tend to be very optimistic. And then when I think about other people too, I tend to be very optimistic, but yeah, at the same time, somehow critical of what I did.
But maybe that's the best of both worlds. The critical view lets you make improvements without the mindset being affected. Maybe so. It's a really unique combination.
Which makes me feel like that's maybe strange, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
What is something surprising about you? Something that the rest of us might not guess?
I don't know why this is coming to my mind. It's like very random, but in high school, I played like co-ed varsity roller hockey.
Fascinating. And pardon the ignorance on the behalf of an immigrant. I don't understand. Like, is there physical contact in this sport?
Yes, we had to wear full pads. Like, it's like the way people would dress for American football, even more pads than that. And you normally, if you didn't grow up in San Diego where it's warm, this would be ice hockey. It's basically a similar thing. The only difference is the puck is a little lighter because, friction.
And so I suppose you were engaged in physical checks and body checks as well.
Yes.
All right, that's pretty surprising given what I know about you.
Yes.
All right.
I wouldn't say I was amazing at it, but it was fun.
Yeah. Think you could still do it?
I love skating, so that was part of the fun. And actually wearing the pads was awesome because you could basically take a dive, like, and you don't really feel it. So
Nice. What is one thing about the world that surprises you?
Well, I don't know how to say this exactly, but it always surprises me when like horrific things happen, when people choose to do, you know, choose to be really like horrible to each other. And I usually try my best to like, it's so bothersome to me that I have to try and figure out like what was that person thinking? How could they get to that point to do that? And sometimes you just can't understand. Sometimes you try to, but that's yeah, that's something I think I will always kind of struggle with. Probably a lot of other people do too as well.
Mm. But just as a intellectual curiosity question, sounds like you don't ascribe to the veneer theory, which is that all of human niceties are just a thin veneer over that if you put humanity in a conflict, and then they will show you what they really care about.
No, I do not. I'm probably the exact opposite. Is I generally believe that most people kind of want similar things. They want, like, most people kind of want a nice life, and I don't think people are innately want to treat each other poorly or see, like, in the worst case, see people as less than people. But through different exposure to ideas, beliefs, and about how to get to that goal of a nice life for you and those very close to you that you really believe are, worthy of that nice life, and also what you've been taught to believe about, other people around you. Between those two, I think it can lead to like the horrific behaviors that we see.
Makes sense. What do you wish your brain was better at doing?
I don't know if I have something that I mean, maybe if I thought for a long time, I could come up with something, but my instinctual answer is to say that I feel pretty fortunate when it comes to the brain department. I feel like that's something that has gone well for me in life, and I've been able to kind of make a career and a job out of mostly like thinking, and so yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that.
And you're happy, so that's great. What do you strongly suspect but have no proof of? Like, what are your conspiracy theories?
Oh gosh. Oh, I don't even know. Like, yeah, I really can't think of anything for this one. It's one of those things where you kind of wish you'd be like, okay, here are some common ones. Like, what do you think of these? But like the recall is not working.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that the common ones like, you're not going to turn out to be a flat earther. Like, I think I'm pretty confident about that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything that I believe.
what is something you've changed your mind about in recently or in distant past?
Well, I grew up quite religious, and so my internal thoughts about religion and the different value placed on certain ritualistic practices has evolved over time.
Interesting.
Yes, that's probably also another surprising fact people wouldn't know about me, was that I grew up actually in like a very religious community. At some point in my life, I was I would go to these like very, very small insular schools of like 30 girls. Just that's it for our high school. And yeah, it was quite different than going to Berkeley afterwards.
I haven't gone to Berkeley, obviously, but what I understand about Berkeley is that it's the last bastion of liberal presence in America. Was that a culture shock, an adjustment, or by that time you had already changed your mind on things?
I had already started to change my mind as like a young teenager, and I sort of like begged my family to send me to a slightly less religious school for my junior and senior year. So I'd had a sort of transition out of the like, my argument was I wanted more academics because the previous school, most of the day was spent studying non-academic material. Yeah. So, but it was still a shock because my high school, I think, had it. I don't know, there were maybe 30 people in my grade. And so then to go and have my first lecture be already 400 people, it's like bigger than my whole school in a room in my lecture. So, yeah.
What is a bad habit you're working on overcoming?
I'd love to say being critical of myself, but that's probably not true. Yeah. Well, I have a tendency to order takeout a lot. And I think at various points in my life, I try to start cooking more. But invariably, I'll always fall back on, picking up food instead. I don't know if that's really a habit per se, but it's something I do daily.
Yeah. Through the pandemic, Devi and I are also pretty hooked on to like salad delivery. So we were pretty happy as soon as we were able to convince ourselves that this is healthy, so it's fine. Like we're not gonna.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a big enjoyment for me. Well, not right now during pandemic, but in general, like I love exploring new places, new restaurants, and so that's part of the way I justify it too. It's like, wow, I mean, there's this new place, we can go support them. It's like, that sounds really good, doesn't it?
Yeah. What are you addicted to?
Probably TV.
I
mean, especially in this last year, I don't know if I watched it as much before, but I feel like I've watched every show that exists.
But you literally mean TV or like laptop plus Netflix, HBO, like the
Oh, I mean Netflix or
not daytime.
I don't think I have access to regular TV, but the like shows that exist on Netflix, HBO, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. There's another thing that's surprising about you. I would not have guessed.
Yeah.
How do you imagine your retirement?
My retirement?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, of course, it's I'm not suggesting anything. These questions are standard. They're not catered just to you. So this is not suggestive of anything.
Yeah. I imagine that there'll be the difference between like initial retirement and steady state retirement. Like initially, I think I'll want a break. I think I'll want to travel and, make sure I spend a lot of time with friends and family that I don't get to see usually. But after that's over, when it's like, more steady state and I'm ready to have more like a hobby or something, then I don't know. I really like mentoring people and talking with younger people, and so I can totally imagine myself, getting some sort of a gig as doing that more full time. So still having, hopefully it would be lower pressure weekly coffee chats with different people and talking to them, helping them kind of like move forward in life.
And what age are you imagining in your head when you imagine this scenario? What age do you think you will be?
Oh gosh.
I
I don't
know.
know. Some long way away, that's for sure. But
Not like 35, I'm done, like, or 45, like I'm quitting early. You're thinking something far away.
something far away.
Mm. Do you think much about the future on a 5 to 10 year horizon?
A little bit. Only in like vague thoughts. I don't really work out explicitly like this must be done this month of this year or anything like that. But I do kind of think about what are the big things that need to happen either in work or in personal life, and sort of think through a little bit about the logistics of how to get that done.
And on a closer time horizon, concrete predictions, when do you think the world will open back up again after COVID?
I'm really hoping this summer we can start to go back a little bit, and then the fall will be starting to get closer to normal. I think there's also a challenge in terms of different regions of the world have access to different amounts of vaccine supply, and also different populations have their own beliefs about whether or not they would like to participate in vaccinations. So some of that may change the timelines, and hopefully there's no crazy mutations that derails it as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very hopeful. I've had one shot so far, so I'm
great.
I'm very very hopeful.
Yeah. And how confident would you say you're about this prediction of like the world returning to quasi or the new normal in fall? Are you like reasonably confident?
I'm gonna say reasonably confident because I need it to be.
Okay. Okay. Do you think there's a point to life in our existence?
Yeah, I do. Though, I think it's pretty natural to question it and think about it. And I wouldn't say that I'm definitely a questioning type person. So even if I believe one thing at one day, a few weeks later, that doesn't mean I won't think, oh, is that actually true, and think about it. And so it's something that I do think about off and on throughout the years.
What do you think is the point?
I knew you were going to ask that.
I mean, I'm a curious person. You tell me you have an answer. I'd love to hear it.
Oh no, I wouldn't say I have an answer.
Yeah,
But okay, so it's like very odd to say this because like I think there there can be a point to an individual's life, and that can be in, at least in my mind, I hope it is, in sort of like making this is, I don't know how to say this without sounding like super corny. So I feel very awkward saying it, but like in kind of improving the lives of people around you. And I think that like just the enjoyment that you get from day to day for yourself and that you can give to other people is already sort of like point enough in my mind. And then, but I think that mindset is a little different, I suspect, than what you were getting at, which is more like, oh, is there some grand vision for humanity over the course of millennia, which is really different. I tend to think of it more locally in terms of like just improving, the lives of individuals and maybe like the horizon of our world over the next few years, that sort of thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And I'm actually grateful that you overcame the urge to, put yourself in a position where you would say something corny. Like it's valuable. I think it's great that you did that. A lot of people have answered this question in a similar way, where they don't quite know what the purpose of humanity is, but with individuals, at least you can define it in the context of helping the world be in a better state than you found it in others.
Well, that's very positive to hear.
And what do you find meaning in?
Well, I mean, just like many of my answers thus far, it's the same kind of thing. I get a lot of value in like these personal connections and seeing like somebody you're working with, somebody you're helping, maybe a friend or a family member, you kind of offered them something, and that enabled them to, I don't know, succeed somewhere. And maybe you helped them, maybe you didn't, but they succeeded after you offered them something. And it's just, you feel like you're taking part a little bit in elevating the other person. And that's, I don't know, it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah. On to sort of even deeper questions. Pineapples on pizza, yummy or an abomination?
No.
No.
Not for me.
Yeah. The world may or may not have a meaning, but surely these two do not belong together.
Exactly.
Okay. How do you decide what to work on?
A bunch of different ways. I talk to people and sometimes I'll learn about a problem that exists and I'll think, oh, this is somewhere where this sort of technology that I've been working on can maybe be really helpful. And but maybe it's not quite there yet for some reason. And so I'll start to think about what's that piece that's missing. And so that's more of like a problem statement driven way to think about it. But sometimes it's purely like academic and technology driven, where I'll just see some cool algorithm somebody built and I'll just think, oh, but it would be better if you could do this. And so, and usually in those cases, I have to try hard to not kind of like go off the deep end, totally thinking only about an algorithm, and like, remember to level up a bit and think about why would I care, or why would another person care who wasn't so excited about this one little weird tweak.
Yeah, I know what you mean, where it can be, but this is cool, and
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you capture and keep track of ideas? Like, are you a notes person, calendar? Do you use something else?
Yeah, all of them. I have redundancy in these things. I will take notes on paper, on sticky notes, in my iPad, on like a dock on my laptop, in my calendar.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Wow.
I don't know why. It's just whatever feels right at that moment, I will write it there.
Okay. And is there a source of truth? Like, is there
No.
one? No. Okay. And
I
so
also rarely look back at my notes.
okay, yeah.
So it's more of like a consolidation of my thoughts type thing. And for some reason, sometimes I prefer to write it on paper, and sometimes I I need to type it because we're moving too fast or something. And yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I end up writing a lot, but very rarely do I go back to my notes. And the purpose is just to remember and like let it process.
Right, right. Sometimes I do. I will look back, but whether or not they're intelligible is a whole other story.
Hmm. What are some traits that you found common across some of the best collaborators or colleagues that you worked with? What stands out as that's what made this a particularly productive or useful or enjoyable collaboration?
I think, um, like randomly, the first thing that came to my mind is generosity. I think there's a tendency for people to get possessive of thoughts, ideas, even time. And if you're trying to work with people, it's just so much better if everybody can be open and have more of a group mentality. And even if there is some case where somebody, you'll notice this sometimes where somebody actually gave an idea, it's misremembered by the collective group of who came up with that idea, that sort of thing. And of course, you want to attribute it properly if you can, but I've noticed that very collaborators that I like to work with, they'll just take it in stride, and you know, it'll work out in the end. We'll kind of remember who it was, especially if you're a senior person and you can help to give credit correctly to the right student. That's super helpful. But yeah, being able to just remember that if the team succeeds, everybody succeeds, I think.
Mm. And do you think you're able to spot this trait early in potential collaborators?
I try to. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's always successful, but I try to. I think um, if it's, you know, if it's not aligned, if the collaboration it just doesn't mesh right, then it's usually pretty clear soon after you start working. And frequently it's mutual, and you can kind of just figure out a way to wrap up the project and move on.
Mm. Describe something that made you smile today.
Well, I think I've smiled a lot out of awkwardness in this call. Does that count?
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah.
Yep.
What is some of the best advice that you've gotten or given?
Um, I'm I value friends and family a lot, and you know, advice there is just to sort of prioritize them and like um, try to keep in touch. Uh, Hopefully, get to see them more frequently sometime soon, and yeah, basically, it's so easy in this job, especially for it to just be your whole world, and so I have to try, you know, to constantly check in and sort of remind myself to um, refocus and think about what will actually make me happy long term.
Hmm. And you think you're able to strike that balance well? Are you happy with, are you able to prioritize that?
I mean, it's a work in progress always, but I definitely try, and I especially try really hard if I do get the opportunity to be with people that I don't get to see very frequently. I try to be present. put away work, put away phone, and just sort of focus in and try to restructure my schedule such that when I do get to go see them, it's not kind of like set up to fail. It's not that something is due right then, it's hopefully just after something was due and it's a natural break point.
Mm. Why did you agree to do this interview with me?
I just really wanted to participate, and I thought it would be super fun to hear your questions, Drew.
Thank you for being supportive.
Yes.
50% of the questions that you heard today were Devi's questions from season 1. 50% were new that I came up
Nice.
with.
Nice.
So I'll pass along some of the compliments to her as well.
It was good. Yeah, it was a nice mix of very easy and harder questions.
Yeah, I was hoping so. You don't see it at your end, but we at least sat down and tried to cluster questions so that we can probe and come at certain aspects like mental models and frameworks from different points of view.
Right. Yeah.
Those were all the questions, Judy. Is there anything that we didn't get to that you'd like to talk about that is particularly reflective of who you are and what your life is like that we couldn't cover?
No, not in particular. I think we covered a lot.
Okay. So thank you for doing this again. I'll stop here.
Thanks for inviting me.